Listen, it was great to see President Trump, inauguration yesterday and
What up, Seymour?
ultimately see him come back to office. Trump is about business. You hear him talk about tariffs. You hear him talk about, free trade. And if you come back and look at cannabis and the opportunities there to legalize that and the excise tax that can be brought into the U.S. coffers, I think he looks at it as a business. And I think, as I said before, I think medical cannabis in the U.S. legalizes, and that enacts safe bank. Ultimately, from a decriminalization, and that takes the illicit market off the street. And I think absolutely Trump will absolutely look at that. And I think, he has already looked at that. When it came to the election in November, he was in favor of cannabis, legalizing from a recreational standpoint in Florida. It didn't pass because it's needed 60%. And I think it was around 53, 54%.
Why are you optimistic that he'll do this stuff during this term when during his first term there was a lot of optimism and a lot of hope from folks in the cannabis industry? I know you weren't at Tilray at that time, but there was a lot of optimism coming from the industry, and that ultimately did not come to pass.
So, listen, again, I think from a business standpoint, and he looks at it from two things. He looks at it from the tax dollars and the excise tax that come into place, and he looks at an illicit market that he takes off the street, and he gets real regulation in here, and he ultimately brings safe banking in here, which allows money that's going through the banks from a regulatory standpoint. Listen, you come back and look at Canada today, and Canada's a tenth of the size of the U.S., and there's over $1.5 billion in excise tax that comes into Canada each year. If you multiply that by 10, you look at the $15 billion opportunity here in the U.S. So I come back and absolutely, if you look at Europe today, there's 20 different countries that allow medical cannabis in Europe today. And come back and look at recreational cannabis. Recreational cannabis today is legal in 27 states in the U.S., and medical cannabis is in 35 states. So a big part of the U.S. population wants cannabis legalized. But I'll tell you this here, Tilray is in a good spot. We can't sell cannabis in the U.S. because we're a NASDAQ-listed company. We're the largest cannabis company in Canada today. We have a good-sized beverage business in the U.S. today with our craft beers, our spirits with Breckenridge, and our hemp business with Manitoba Harvest. We also have a good-sized business in Europe today with our medical cannabis business, where there we only can sell cannabis through prescriptions from doctors. So we're a well-diversified company. And I got to tell you, it would be very helpful to Tilray if cannabis did legalize in the U.S. from a medical standpoint. And I think, hey, it's a $200-300 million business for us right away at a 3% size of the market. As you just said, it's a $10 billion market here in the U.S. from a medical standpoint.
What about tariffs and the comments that the president has made about Canada, the possibility that there could be 25% 25% tariffs on goods coming from Canada by February 1st, and also the jokes that he made over the last month about essentially Canada becoming the 51st state? How do you look at all that?
Well, I don't think that's going to happen, number one. But number two, I think you got Canada's attention. The good news is, the only thing we bring in from Canada today is we bring some hemp in for our hemp business. None of our beer, or of course, none of our cannabis does sell within, the U.S. None of the cannabis we make today or grow in Canada is sold in the U.S. Listen, the Canadian dollar, has quite a bit of value. So if there was a tariff, I think ultimately it gets passed on to the consumer. I don't think it's going to be 25%. I think there could be tariffs, but we have 5 million square feet of grow in Canada today. And if we could produce there, which would be about 60 metric tons, and be able to sell it in the U.S., it would be